When do we get our hot air balloon?
I don't know. Maybe I'll send some. I was going to keep them
That's 175.
so I could see how much you've grown. That's mine. Just put it in my desk. Yes. Oh, not yet. I want to talk about it first. But then I will. We're going to be reading about whooping cranes in danger. Our essential question is we're trying to answer why we're reading is how can people help animals survive? So we're going to find out how the group of scientists help these birds survive. So when we are reading and we're looking to take notes in our graphic organizer, we're going to look for things that tell us about how people are helping the crane. Okay? Those are the kind of details we want to put in our notes. I believe they are still endangered. We can. All right, and this is written by Susan E. Goodman. Mason, I am trying to read. You are writing quietly at your desk. Micah would like to start us off, so go ahead, Micah.
Heroes, superheroes in comics catch bad guys. Astronauts risk their lives to explore space. Doctors devote their
Careers
to finding cures for dreadful diseases. Our story has heroes too. Scientists and their helpers are saving the whooping cranes.
So I think this story is going to tell us how scientists are helping to save the whooping cranes. Do you guys agree from that?
Yes.
And I'm guessing the author's point of view is that they're going to be a hero. But we'll have to see if that sticks.
I flipped to the next page. What they're going to do is take a puppet and they always do.
Turning to page 174. Whoopers need help. Bentley. Do I have a reader? Chase?
By 1941, only 15 moving cranes are left in the wild. It looked as if they could die out forever. Some people refused to want to stop them. Government planned for these cranes to live on. Budget cannot enter this wildlife refuge. Scientists find this tiny little fish in Texas. 70 years later, its population has grown to 200 birds. But one clock is not enough to design or Dawn could wipe it out completely. Scientists decided to create a new clock in
Wisconsin.
Two groups of birds are safer than one.
All right. So, what is going on? What were some of the details we read there? What was happening to the whooping crane? Why was it dying out? Sophia? Why were they being endangered? What was happening to them? Aubrey? Yep, hunted. Yep, and habitat loss. Because the farmers were taking over it, right? You can go into the next one down, it's fine. The other thing, The other note that the author had is a disease or a storm could wipe it out completely because how many flocks were left? One flock was left. So a storm, yep, or disease could wipe out the birds. The point of view, this will be your bottom box, okay? Point of view. The author's point of view is that how many flocks? One flock is not enough. That goes in your bottom box. That says point of view, right? You don't have to write POV because yours says point of view. These are your details. Here's your details. We're going to have multiple things that are going to be part of the author's point of view as we're reading. A tough problem. Building a new flock of whoopers is harder than it seems. Mason, Troy is working on writing his writing. That's what you need to be doing. You wrote your hamster story too? Okay. These cranes are born up north. Then they migrate south in fall to avoid the cold winter. In spring, they fly back north for the summer. Who says the birds aren't smart? Scientists had a big problem to solve. They couldn't just grab some whoopers from the first flock to start a new one. When returning north, adult birds will only go back to the place they were born. So all members of the second flock had to be born in a new spot. How could that happen? Who could the parents be? I wonder what they're going to do. A clever solution. 11 eggs were about to hatch in spring of 2001. Their parents were already to welcome the chicks into the world. Their puppet parents, that is. This puppet takes the place of a whooping crane mother chick. So you see that picture there of the puppet? So scientists must have took 11 eggs and figured out where they wanted the new cranes to fly to, huh? Scientists had raised the chicks, but whoopers weren't supposed to get used to people. Mason, you are not helping me. The birds needed to be wild and stay safe, so humans pretended to be whooping cranes. They wore white costumes to hide their faces and bodies, and they wore puppets on their arms to deal with the chicks. The caretakers never spoke near the birds. They talked to the chicks by playing tapes of real whooping cranes. They also had real whoopers in the refuge. The chicks needed to know what actual grown-up whooping cranes look like. Caretakers used puppets to teach the same skills the real parents would. The puppets showed them where to swim and where to sleep. They even taught the chicks how to get along with other cranes. The puppets could teach most things, but they couldn't teach the chicks how to fly. So why did scientists wear the white costumes?
To pretend they're
Aubrey? How come?
so the chick doesn't.
Micah?
So that the chicks don't get used to humans because they need to be wild.
Exactly. All right. The page 177, the biggest parent of them all. Bentley, you want to read?
That's exactly what the chicks did. Of course, the truth given out by the pilot's puppet helped a lot.
Okay, so we have a point of view. What was the author's point of view about the pilot? What could the pilot and planes do?
Wait, sped up?
What could the pilot and planes do for the whooping cranes?
Help them fly?
Yeah, so the point of view is the pilot and plane could teach the whoopers to fly. What are some details that support that? What did the chicks do when the plane was rolling off? The chicks ran and flapped their wings. Operation Migration. This could be another box, just so you know. If you wrote in the same box, that's fine too. But
I wrote like this.
that's fine. Operation Migration. Finally, the big day came. This experiment started with 11 eggs. 2 chicks had gotten sick and died. One couldn't fly well enough and moved to a zoo, and the other 8 whoopers were ready to go. 2 ultralight revved their engines. One would lead the birds, and the other would track down the cranes that stayed from the flock. The plane took off, and the birds did too, and they were on their way. Planes and birds were only part of the migration. A crew drove south too. The birds had to eat and rest each night, and scientists had chosen safe places along the way. The crew rushed ahead to set up pens for them to stay in. Their trip was hard, and the cranes flew up to 95 miles on a good day, and only 20 on a bad one. Often rain and wind kept them from flying at all. One sad night, a giant storm ripped their pen apart, and caretakers spent hours searching and calling for their whoopers. All were fine except one. He had flown into a power line and died. After 48 days, the plane flew over the birds' winter home in Florida. A caretaker on the ground played the whooping crane call, and the whoopers swooped in for a landing, and the first part of the journey was a success. So, what was the point of view from that part that I just read?
They got up to 95 miles an hour.
That they traveled up to 95 miles a day. So, that could be a detail. No.
I'm in my last box.
The author is telling us that the safety is important, right? What were they doing for the safety of the cranes? What were they doing? What were some of the details about the safety? Bentley?
They were making sure the cranes stayed with us.
Yeah, but they were making sure the crane stayed with them?
almost ran out of space in my point of view. I read it. I did.
It's fine, you guys. Just do your best. What else were they doing for the safety? Were they making sure the birds got food? Food and rest were important.
How can you read so fast, Mr. Blake?
Because I've been writing a lot longer than you. Like 30 years. Almost.
I'm almost done.
All right, turning to a warm winter. What was the first thing the Whoopers learned about Florida? Crabs are delicious. The shells were hard, but the meat was soft. Puppet parents helped the Whoopers learn to peck them apart. At first, the cranes stayed in the pen as big as a football field. It even had a pond with a fake Whooper parent in it to make them feel safe. Actually, they were safer in the pond. Cranes usually sleep in water at night. Splashing sounds warn them if a predator is nearby. In time, caretakers took off the pen, and the cranes flew out to explore more of their new home. Caretakers hid, watching them to enjoy yummy shrimp and snails. Generally, the Whoopers returned to the pen at night. Sometimes they didn't. 2 cranes were killed by bobcats, and now there were 5.
This is a very violent, not violent, interesting.
So, what did the pen do, guys?
And they took it down.
What did the pen do for the cranes?
It kept them where they wanted them.
It kept them safe.
I didn't even start with my second line down there.
How big was it?
A football field. Are you writing these?
The pond had what in it to make them feel safe?
Whoopee crane. Puppet.
It wasn't a puppet, it was a fake parent, right? They taught them to sleep in the water, right?
Don't they sleep on one leg?
That's a flamingo.
Okay.
All right. In spring, the birds started eating more, and that was a good sign because this storing energy for the trip north. Still, scientists wondered, would the cranes know when to leave? Think they're gonna know?
No. Yes.
You think so?
Yes.
Homeward bound. One day, caretakers heard radio signals. The cranes had band legs that sent out these sounds. The Whoopers were on the move. Caretakers jumped into their trucks to follow the signals. They had to hurry. The trip home would be much faster. Air currents, just like water does. Birds ride those currents the same way the surfers ride waves. The cranes traveled more than 200 miles on the first day. They were headed north. But would they remain on their route? Soon scientists had another thing to worry about. One crane left the group. A truck turned to track her. Where was she going, and why? What do you think was going to happen to that crane? You think so? Let's find out.
No, look at that.
Day by day, the cranes kept flying, and then the group reached Lake Michigan. They began to circle. Oh no, thought the trekkers. They do not know which way to go. The Whoopers kept circling around and around. After 2 hours, they finally turned west. They were on course. 11 days after leaving Florida, these 4 cranes came in for a landing. They were very close to the pen they grew up in. What about that last crane? She ended up visiting a flock of sandhill cranes for a while. Sandhill cranes are relatives of whooping cranes. 2 weeks later, though, she came back to the refuge.
I know what they do with the moms.
A new beginning. The first migration was finished, but the whooping crane's recovery had just begun. The next year, these 5 cranes flew south by themselves. The ultralights were busy leading 16 new chicks. The cranes still led migrations each fall, or the planes still lead migrations each fall, but now whooping crane parents are leading their own chicks down south. Some of these chicks have grown up enough to have babies of their own, and the whooping crane is still threatened. It remains one of America's most endangered birds, but scientists are hopeful, and luckily, the flock is getting bigger. So, the last point of view is scientists are hopeful. How are they hopeful? What were the details that made them hopeful? What things did you hear in that last part that would make them hopeful?
What page are we on?
We're on page 183.
I'm still on Weston.
Bentley?
They were hopeful that the cranes would let go and stick.
Why? What details did we hear?
Because they're making the flock bigger.
The flock is getting bigger, yep. So do you have lots of summary and details
Yep.
to write a paragraph
I
from?
got a room on all of them. I would be on the third one. I'm on my third one. I only wrote on my third one. This is how much I wrote.
So I'm going to give you your starting sentence. Okay? In the story, whooping.
Where do we write that?
This is going to be on your page.
My summary page. Summary.
Yes. In the story, whooping cranes in danger, scientists work to save the cranes. That's, this is a good starting sentence, right? And I'm telling what I'm finding it in, right? My concluding sentence, I'll give you the concluding sentence too, and all you have to do is come up with 3 detailed sentences on your own.
If scientists work to save the cranes, yes. Why is writing it down later?
Because scientists are hopeful they will be able to save the whoopers. So, use 3 sentences in the middle of these 2 sentences from your detail notes to support my beginning sentence and my ending sentence. Concluding. Yep, you come up with the detail sentences for the middle of your summary.
Bishop, but I don't think Eva could.
You can use your notes, yes.
Bishop, but I don't think Eva could say any of that.
I know. She has to do it from auditory.
I think she was just watching you, Sophia.
Yep, if we have to do this at